The doors of the grand ballroom slammed open. Gasps rippled through the crowd as every head turned toward the woman stepping inside. She wasn't in a maid's uniform tonight. She wore a gown the color of deep emerald, her chin high, diamond earrings catching the light. Just a week ago, she had been scrubbing these same floors. The millionaire who owned this mansion had handed her a gold-trimmed gala invitation, not out of kindness, but as a cruel joke. He never expected her to show up. But now, here she was, walking straight toward him. And before the night was over, the man who thought he was laughing at her would be the one humiliated. Her name was Margaret Lewis. For almost a decade, she had worked in Henry Crawford's mansion, the man who threw the most glamorous charity gala in the city. Every morning she arrived before sunrise, walking through the side entrance reserved for staff. By the time Henry's family woke up, the kitchen was spotless, the silverware shined, and the marble floors glowed. Outside of work, her life was small but full of meaning. She lived in a modest apartment on the other side of town with her teenage granddaughter, Naomi. They didn't have much, but they had each other. Every evening, Margaret cooked dinner, and they would sit together, talking about school, homework, and life. Henry Crawford was the kind of man who thrived on attention. He loved expensive cars, loud laughs, and being the center of every conversation. His annual charity gala wasn't just about raising money, it was his stage. Guests included celebrities, politicians, and business tycoons. The staff was there to serve, not to be seen. So when Henry handed Margaret that invitation in front of his friends, it wasn't generosity. It was a show. The laughter from the men around him said it all. They didn't see a person holding that gold-trimmed card. They saw the punchline to a joke they thought was clever. Margaret simply nodded, thanked him, and slid the invitation into her bag. No one could tell what she was thinking, and that was exactly how she wanted it. In the days that followed, the mansion was a hive of activity. Delivery trucks came and went, unloading crates of champagne, delicate pastries, and glittering decorations. Margaret kept to her duties, dusting chandeliers, ironing table linens, arranging fresh flowers. No one noticed the quiet determination in her movements. She didn't tell Henry she was coming. She didn't tell the other staff either. But every evening after work, she made her way to a small dress shop in the neighborhood. The owner, Mrs. Delaney, was an old friend from church, and when Margaret explained what had happened, Mrs. Delaney's expression hardened. "He thinks you don't belong there?" she said, disappearing into the back. Moments later, she returned with a gown the color of deep emerald. The fabric shimmered like still water under moonlight. Margaret hesitated. "It's beautiful, but I can't afford." "You can borrow it," Mrs. Delaney said firmly. "And you're going to wear it better than anyone else in that room." Word spread quietly among the women in Margaret's community. A neighbor offered her gold heels. Another lent her a delicate clutch bag. Mrs. Howard from down the hall brought over diamond earrings she hadn't worn in years. Even Naomi joined in, practicing posture and walking with her grandmother in their living room. "You've got to keep your chin up," Naomi insisted, balancing a book on her head for practice. By the night of the gala, Margaret was ready. She took a deep breath as she approached the front entrance, a place she had never entered in all her years working there. The valet glanced at her invitation, did a double take, and quickly straightened his jacket. Inside, the ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. Henry stood in the center, surrounded by guests, his voice booming with charm. Then the ballroom doors opened. The chatter in the ballroom faltered as the emerald gown appeared in the doorway. Heads turned one by one, like ripples spreading across water. Margaret stepped forward, each movement deliberate, the train of her gown gliding over the polished marble. The diamond earrings caught the chandelier's light, sending tiny flashes through the room. People squinted as if trying to place her. A few whispered. The waitstaff froze mid-step. They knew her instantly, though never like this. Henry's laughter died mid-sentence. His smirk slipped, replaced by a flicker of confusion. He hadn't imagined she would actually come, much less look like this. His friends shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. Margaret didn't rush. She let the silence grow, let the weight of her presence settle into every corner of the room. The string quartet hesitated for a beat before continuing, their notes now a soft backdrop to the slow, steady rhythm of her heels against the floor. A hostess stepped toward her, eyebrows tight. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she began, her voice edged with doubt. "This event is for invited guests." Margaret reached into her clutch and handed over the gold-trimmed envelope. "I am an invited guest." The hostess read the card, her cheeks coloring as she saw Henry's signature. "Of course," she said quickly, stepping aside. "Welcome." Margaret thanked her and walked deeper into the ballroom, scanning the room until her gaze landed on Henry. His expression was neutral now, the kind of mask people wear when they can feel the room's attention slipping away from them. Conversation started again in low murmurs, but the air had changed. The joke was no longer funny. The punchline was walking upright, smiling, and impossible to ignore. Margaret stopped in front of Henry. "Mr. Crawford," she said warmly, "thank you for inviting me." For a split second, his mouth opened, maybe to retake control of the moment, but nothing came out. Henry tried to recover. "Well, Margaret, I must say, you've surprised us." His friends forced polite smiles, but their eyes darted between them, sensing something they couldn't quite name. She smiled. "I imagine that doesn't happen to you often." Her tone wasn't sharp, but it carried a quiet weight that hung in the space between them. People nearby leaned in slightly, pretending to sip their drinks while listening closely. Before Henry could respond, a woman in a sapphire gown approached. "And who is this vision?" she asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "This is Margaret," Henry began. I work in Mr. Crawford's home," Margaret said smoothly, meeting the woman's eyes without hesitation. "Tonight, I'm here as his guest." The woman's smile widened. "Well, I'm glad you are. The room is better for it." It was a small comment, but the words traveled fast in a room like this. More people began to glance in Margaret's direction. Some approached, eager to be introduced. Others simply watched, the energy shifting in slow but steady waves. Henry's hand tightened around his champagne glass. He had planned to tell the story of how he'd invited the maid, as a bit of harmless fun. But now, the way she carried herself made that story sound small and mean. Margaret wasn't there to shame him outright. She didn't need to. She was rewriting the ending in real time, and everyone could feel it. Dinner was being served, and Margaret found herself seated between a city councilwoman and the director of a children's scholarship fund. The councilwoman leaned in, curious. "So, Margaret, what line of work are you in?" Margaret answered simply. "I take care of people's homes. I've worked for Mr. Crawford for many years." She didn't add more, didn't explain herself away. The councilwoman nodded with respect, sensing there was more to the story. Across the table, the scholarship director smiled warmly. "Well, you certainly light up this room. I'd love to hear more about you after dinner." Henry kept glancing toward their table, his glass nearly empty, his usual charm dulled. Each time someone greeted Margaret warmly, it chipped away at the joke he tried to make. When the speeches began, Henry was first on stage. He spoke about the importance of charity, of giving back, of building a better community. The words sounded hollow now, like a script read too many times. Then the scholarship director took the microphone. "Before we close," she said, "I'd like to invite someone to share a few words, someone who serves this community in ways most of us never see." She turned to Margaret and gestured toward the stage. Gasps murmured through the crowd as Margaret rose, emerald gown flowing behind her. She walked to the podium, her heels steady on the marble floor. "Good evening," she began, her voice clear but gentle. "I've worked in this house for many years. You've seen my work, though maybe not me. I sweep the floors you dance on. I polish the silver you dine with. I make sure that when you wake in the morning, it looks like magic happened overnight." Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned forward. "I'm here tonight because Mr. Crawford gave me an invitation. I imagine it wasn't meant for this, she said, a small smile touching her lips. But I came because my granddaughter asked me a simple question, why not, Grandma? And I realized I didn't have a good answer. Her voice grew steadier. I don't have much money to give. But I give my time, my love, and my belief that every person deserves respect. Whether they own the house or clean it. A long pause filled the room. No one spoke. If you want to make a difference, she continued, don't just write checks. See people. Learn their names. Understand that the person serving your meal tonight has dreams, just like you. The respect you give doesn't cost a dime, but it can change everything. She stepped away from the microphone to a wave of applause. At first polite, then building into something stronger. People stood. Not everyone, but enough. Henry remained seated, clapping stiffly, his smile tight. He knew the story of the night was no longer his to tell. When the gala ended, guests came to Margaret one by one. Some offered handshakes. Others wanted to visit the community center where she volunteered on Saturdays. One woman pressed a check into her hand for the scholarship fund. The councilwoman promised to call about a city project. Outside, the cool night air felt different. Margaret's head was high, her steps unhurried. The valet brought her car, borrowed from Mrs. Howard, and opened the door like she was royalty. When she got home, Naomi was waiting on the couch. Her eyes went wide at the sight of the gown. You look like you own the world, she said. Margaret smiled. No, sweetheart. I just own the moment. This isn't just a story about a woman at a gala. It's about walking into a room that wasn't built for you, and refusing to shrink. So ask yourself, if you had an invitation in your hand, literal or not, who would you give it to? And when the doors open, would you let them walk in like a guest, or like a joke? Because the answer to that question says more about you than anything else.